August the 18th school board work session for Lynchburg City Schools. We want to certainly thank Ms. Day for providing each of you as an option a special mask to wear. And we are also appreciative of all of the positive energy as this school board constantly readies itself to do the work required of us as a school board. Tonight, you have an agenda before you in which the chair is willing to entertain a motion to approve the agenda, which allows us to put in front of the public matters of importance for discussion today, as well as to discuss some of our committee reports in advance of our September the 1st meeting. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll make a motion.
Been moved by Ms. Morrison, seconded by Dr. Brennan, that we will approve the agenda as printed. Any discussion or questions? Hearing none, we will call for the vote. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the motion carries, and we will now have our Pledge of Allegiance. We pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank everyone. All right, I am so grateful for us coming together tonight, and something just been moving in me that together we can. And so as we seek to work together tonight, we have before us for item B1 on our agenda, a discussion for informational purposes around return to learn, remote learning at the elementary level. We're going to ask that Dr. Edwards will lead this portion of our agenda.
Absolutely. So thank you and welcome everybody. We are less than a week before the start of school and really excited about that. We've asked our CIT team to join us and give us a little bit in-depth preview of return to learn and remote learning at the elementary level. We know parents have a lot of questions, caregivers have a lot of questions, and we're here for you. We want to make this as smooth and as seamless as possible. So the team is going to take you through a couple things that are on our website and give you a preview of a day in the life of. So I am going to turn it over to our Deputy Superintendent, Ms. Pugh, to take us through it.
Thank you very much. We are happy to be here tonight to give you some additional information. We are focusing tonight on our youngest learners at the elementary level, so those students in pre-K through second grade. And we're here to provide some clarification on how our teachers and our school leaders are providing instruction and supports for these students. So I have a wonderful team here with me that's going to lead you through some different activities and some different information. We have our instructional supervisors from the C&I department, Sarah Campbell, Allison Jordan, and Maria Yeager. We also have from our IT department, Supervisor of Instructional Technology, Chuck Yarborough, and one of our IT RTs who serves at Lincoln Middle School and Paul Monroe Elementary School. And then we also have Ms. Courtney Bennett, and she is the literacy coach at R.S. Payne Elementary. She also serves as the kindergarten pod lead, and you'll hear a little bit more about what the pods are doing. She also served this summer and spring as the chair of the pre-K through 2 Dream Team Committee. So she's been vital in the work of focusing on our youngest learners. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to the team.
Good evening.
Good evening.
We are going to start, ready or not, August 24th is coming on Monday. What are we going to do? What is it going to look like? So on August 24th, digital resources are going to be available through our we're going to focus on the pre-K through 2. It's going to be available through Seesaw. Well, how do we get to Seesaw? The first step will be the communications will be sent to parents through email. Through this email, they're going to be able to, how do they access? How do they get to Seesaw? What is the login to get into Seesaw? And we'll be able to do that this evening in just a few minutes. But after the parents are able to access and the students are able to access and get into Seesaw, the teachers are going to be watching to see as their classroom is going to grow. They're going to be able to see Did Amy get in and log? Was she able to get into Seesaw? Was Belle able to get into Seesaw? Well, oh no, Crystal, I haven't seen her get logged in yet. So that teacher is going to be able to call that parent and say, were you able, did you see the email that was sent out for Seesaw? Can I help you get in? What do you need that I can help you so that you can access the Seesaw so your child will be able to do the activities? So they'll be able to ask, did you get well, maybe they got the email, but what do they do next? So we'll be able to have that dialogue with the parents to be able to help them to see what they need to be able to access. What supports do you need to help you with your student at home? Now, and that might be the first day, that might be the second day. We've got the first week, we're talking about the week of August 24th, so that we can make sure before we start to roll in the next week, that's our first step right there, is to see and have that dialogue with the parents. Once we're able to get those parents access and get into Seesaw, what we're going to be able to do is, this is where the variety of learning tools are going to be. There's going to be instructional videos, and again, we'll be able to you're going to have a first step look here of what that's actually going to look like. Videos, interactive assignments, small group meetings, again, phone calls, being able to schedule to work with our pre-K through second graders. As these teachers are connecting and having that dialogue, they're going to be making that connection, determine what are the needs, what are the additional supports. So they're going to be able to collect that information, and then they're going to be at the school level, be able to sort it out specifically, what do we need to do? Because that's going to lead us into our next week of, here we are after Labor Day, the week of September 8th. We're going to be able to assemble instructional materials for students. We'll be able to, we have Go Math materials, and that's K through 5, consumable materials that we will be able to get to our students. Access to library materials, we are coordinating with transportation to have mobile libraries. We know reading is so important, and we want to be able to get that into their hands. So we have to be able to collect the data first so that we can be able to move and know how we can help and support the students at home. So through instructional kits, with reading materials, STEM materials, manipulatives, paper pencil activities, everything that we can combine as we're getting that feedback from our parents. So that's kind of the start, because Monday is coming, and so that is our plan for how we've got to be able to get back so that we can get the instructional materials to our students, so that dialogue and that communication, and that's what the communication is going to be key, so that we are able to connect with our parents, connect with our students, so that learning can take place.
I'm going to focus just a little bit on the website. This is the Return to Learn website that's been up, the Return to Learn page on our website. And this is updated on a regular basis. Thank you to the communications team who has been doing a great job. It is full of resources. It has our Return to Learn plan, our health mitigation plan, information about Chromebook support, information about Wi-Fi access points across the school division and across the city. But I also want to draw your attention to this chart here, and this is the Virginia Department of Education's recommended time for maximum learning in a remote or virtual environment. So this has been presented to parents, to administrators, and to teachers, and this has been at the forefront when teachers have been planning, especially for our youngest students. And so our families, our instruction is not going to be the 6-hour-a-day instruction that it's been before when students are physically in our buildings. As you can see here, pre-K through 2, the maximum learning time per day recommended by the Virginia Department of Education is 30 to 45 minutes, with a total of 2.5 to close to 4 hours weekly. K2, 45 to 60 minutes a day, with 3.25 to 5 hours weekly. So the time spent on learning is going to be less than if they were in front of us in a classroom. But what we don't want to happen is for students to be sitting in front of a device, having to connect on a synchronous time-bound schedule with a teacher and sitting in one location in their home all day for learning. So the activities can be accessed via Seesaw for our youngest learners, and as we've said in the past, via Google Classroom for 3rd through 5th grade learners and our secondary learners as well. And based on the needs of the home and the environment, the learning environment of the home, the supports at home, the schedules at home, parents will be partners in their students' learning, and we'll have to work with them to get the learning activities done. So this information has been vital and at the forefront of the planning of our teachers. We are also just sent out an email communication earlier today to our families with a specific email address and also the number to our IT help desk. We're seeking information, and I know Sarah just mentioned that teachers are reaching out currently. Teachers are calling students, the schools are calling families and asking, what can we do to support you, especially in terms of access to a device for our youngest students and access to the internet. So we released a specific email address for that today, as well as the number for the help desk. And we are going to work with those families as best we can to provide them access to devices and to point them in the direction for internet access. Now we are going to, Allison Kapler, who is the ITR2 at Paul Monroe Elementary School and Lynchburg Middle School, is going to take us on a tour of Seesaw, and we're going to swap out computers really quickly. Well, let's see what happens. From the perspective of what it looks like when the parent logs in as the student to access the learning materials and resources on Monday.
Okay, hello everyone.
Hello.
So as she said, I'm going to show you some of what students will be seeing on our Seesaw platform. So the information on how students will log in will be going to families through email. That's our first choice. And what they'll be getting is something called a home learning code. And a home learning code looks kind of like this. This is the printable version of it, but it will give each student a unique code to be able to log into the platform. And the great thing about this is Seesaw is also an app, an Android and Apple, that there are a few different apps. I'll talk about that in a second, but this QR code at the bottom, if this page is printed, then the student can go up at any time, scan the QR code to get logged into the class. So this would be something that you would keep on the refrigerator if you have multiple kids using the same device to be able to get access to their class. So I'm going to take that home learning code and show you when you get to Seesaw, you can type seesaw.com and it will redirect you here, app.seesaw.me. I'm going to click I'm a student. And then right down here is where you can choose to either scan a code or enter your code, and that automatically links you with your class. And then you click go. I'm already logged in, so I'm going to pull up that window for you. So when a student logs in, this is just a student number 2, they get to a journal site. So journal is where you'll see any work that has been submitted, and it's kind of like a digital journal that will keep anything that they've added to their class and submitted to their teacher. So this is going to be an ongoing list. But what the students will do is click on activities, and you can see any activities that have been assigned to you by the teacher. The teacher can push out activities to the entire class, or they can pick and choose individual students to be able to differentiate to their needs. You can see there are just 3 activities here. This is just a sample of what one might look like. This is called My Dream Pet Activity, and you can see that there are specific directions on how to complete below. And then teachers can also record their voice, and students can hear the teacher's voice explaining the directions to them with each assignment. So I'm going to click on this to make it a little bit larger. And this is actually a link to a book being read aloud by a teacher. So I'm going to jump back here. Once the student listens to the book being read aloud, they can click the Add Response button. And teachers are able to create templates for students to be able to respond to their work or to their assignments, or they can leave it kind of open-ended and let them create. But this one has a template that a teacher has created. So after reading the story, then they get to respond and say which pet they would choose. So these tools over here on the left enable me to be able to add my response. So I can click the T and it will add a text box. I will choose a fish and move it over. And then I can add another text box because they are easy to take care of. All right, and then I can move that box over. You can also use the pencil tool to write, and if students are using a tablet, they will be able to write with their finger on the screen. So I can then use my pencil tool to add a picture of my fish. Whoop, that is a big mouth. Sorry, he's really hungry. All right, so there is my fish. So you can use the text feature. Students can also use the microphone and record their voice to respond. So I can allow it access. I will choose a fish because they are easy to take care of. So that voice response will save, and when the teacher sees it, they'll be able to just click the play button to hear the student's voice. You can also, there's a few, I'll show you the rest of the creative tools. You can add photos, videos, upload other things that you have created, or add links. If you use a different platform to create something, they can submit a link here through Seesaw. And then there are different shapes that they have access to, and things like place value tools as well. So when the student is finished, they'll click the Done button, and then the check mark. It uploads the activity, and the teacher then gets to look at it. It'll notify the teacher, and they're able to then press the play button and hear the student's response, look at it, and then give feedback. There's comment ability to be able to give feedback to students. So the activities page now, remember this assignment that I just completed was in my activities list. Whoops. Now it is gone from my activities list, and it is in my journal to then be able to look at later. Another feature of Seesaw is we have an inbox here for another way that teachers can communicate with families. So they can add assignments. This is just, announcements. This is just an announcement that I have added to students to kind of welcome them. So you can add different types of communication in here as well. Let's go here. I want to show you, this is one teacher created a weekly schedule to kind of show them all the activities for the week. And then you can link it to different activities within Seesaw. So we are working with teachers with different creative ways to be able to add all of their activities so that students can access them easily. I mentioned the app. Let me go back to the app portion real quickly. So the look of Seesaw through the app looks exactly like it does on the screen right now. There are two different apps. There's one called Seesaw Class and then Seesaw Family. So students will use the Seesaw Class app if they happen to have a device where they can install an app, and they'll do what I showed you earlier, scan the QR code or copy and paste their access code in there, and then they can submit work. Everything looks the exact same through that app. The Seesaw Family app is how parents can ask to be joined to be able to see student work. They'll see their journal, and then they'll have the inbox, but they cannot on the Family app complete assignments and submit assignments to the teacher. But that is a great way for them to communicate with the teacher because they also have that messaging system. Okay. Next.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And now, Courtney Bennett, who again is the literacy coach at RS Payne. She's also the kindergarten pod lead for the division, and she served as the chair of the pre-K through second Dream Team Committee this summer.
Yes.
She is going to walk you through some talking points just from the perspective of a teacher, a pod lead, and what this might look like. Go ahead.
Okay. Good evening. I have the privilege of working with the K-Pod, and as you know, all teachers are hard workers, and these kindergarten teachers are really, really working hard. We've got a great group, and I am leading this team with two other coaches. So some of the things that we're doing with their pod, or some of the things that the teachers are doing for their students, are giving them lots of different opportunities for learning, because we know that not all kids have the devices. They don't all have computers. So our main focus is the seesaw that Allison just showed us, and how they will respond, to their teachers and through the assignments are the ways that she showed you, through the videos, through like a flip response. They could take a picture of themselves, they could take a video, they could do it through the microphone. And the teachers can give them prompts so that they're using their oral language, because in kindergarten, oral language and the development of that is a big deal. So being able to record themselves doing that is one way that they're going to show what they've learned. And also, they can use things that they have at home, because most parents want to know, how are they going to partner with a teacher, or how can they help their children? And so one of the ways is, we're trying to give them prompts or give them assignments that they can do with the things they already have at home. For example, can you show me a picture, or show me your favorite toy that's brown and tell me what it is? So that's something that every child can do, because we want to make it so that everybody has the same ability to respond to these. Teachers are also using the Zooms and using morning meetings to meet with their students so that they can see their teachers' faces, they can hear their teachers' voices, and get to know their teachers that way. And the same thing for the teachers, so they can see their students. For assessment, we're going to use the ESGI that they have used to do, and they can do that through Zoom. They can do it one-on-one. They can do it in small groups. So it's something that the teachers are already familiar with, and it's not hard for them to use with the students. Some other activities, though, that the parents can partner with teachers and ways that they can respond. They can do activities such as, if they don't have a computer or device, they can practice writing their name in shaving cream. They can write it in sand. Teachers are very creative and use all kinds of things to teach children how to write. And they can also still do it with paper and pencil. Also giving them opportunities to count things. Go find your parent 5 socks and count those socks to your parent. They're also going to be provided with lots of hands-on activities and materials, things that they may have at their house, or things that the teachers can give suggestions. And they'll give the suggestions, through the phone, through Zoom. So teachers want to partner with the parents and give them that information. Teachers are also going to be reading stories, reading the books out loud, asking questions, having the kids respond. Giving them lots of opportunities to be able to interact with the teachers through Zoom, through the flip videos, and all the other ways that we have communicated with families. And not only will they communicate through the Zooms, but communicating through phone calls, through email, through a program that is called Class Dojo, and that's a platform that they can interact with families and respond, and families can respond back through newsletters and also the school messenger. So that's how the teachers are going to be working, and things that they're going to be presenting to the kindergarten students. Myself as a literacy coach, and with my literacy teachers that are in my building, because we don't have a classroom, but we're still going to be connected to our students. We're going to be connected through Seesaw. We're able to log into those classes and still get to our students that we have a working relationship with. The students that need the extra help in reading. We're able to communicate through Zoom that way, and push out assignments. So that's kind of how we will be working with them also. Thank you.
Chuck, do you want to share the resource?
Do you have it up?
I will locate that, if you want to talk about that while I see if I can find that.
One of the questions that's come up a lot is how are we going to teach kids how to do all this, right? Saw some nodding, because our 6th graders, our 8th graders, our 10th graders know that, right? That's what my team does. I'm Chuck Yarber, I'm the instructional supervisor. And so Kepler's part of, I have a team of rock stars. They have been creating and curating content like this. So if you've got kids who have maybe not really done much with a Chromebook, they have gone out, I can't take any credit for this. There are probably 60 or 70 links on this one document alone, and they are really short. These are the tools that teachers can use to show their kids how to do these things, because kids don't always pick it up the first time. And so a teacher can say, if I'm working with 2nd grade, 3rd grade kids, and they've got a Chromebook, or a lot of them have Chromebooks, but they haven't done a whole lot with it, they can grab these little small videos that they can play into Classroom or something to walk them through it. So we've got contents on Drive, Classroom, how to use Seesaw, here's a tour of the class app, how to log in with home learning, here's a parent tutorial. These are all resources, not that we've all created ourselves, a lot of this has been created by the vendor. Companies like Seesaw and Google spend millions of dollars creating content that is better than we can do on the fly. And so this is the kind of resource that we're going to use to help students and teachers get over that initial, how do I make it do this? If that kind of helps to answer that. We have Google Sheets, Docs, most of the Gmail, the G Suite stuff. We've even got some Zoom videos. Zoom's something that some of us have done way more than we ever care to admit. Some kids, this isn't something that's happened a whole lot. And so we're going to be talking to kids about what Zoom protocol is, how to do that in a way that doesn't get you in trouble, but also lets you get the attention you need in some of those questions. Did you have any questions I could answer for you about any of this?
It sounds really good.
Have you, Amy, you all finished, everybody?
Everybody is done speaking, but I know you all probably have questions.
Yes, okay, very good.
Answer questions
Listen.
as we can.
I can't speak for the other board members, but I am incredibly impressed with what I just heard. But questions from the board. Bill Evans?
I'm impressed as well. I do have a question at the beginning. I'd heard somebody say something about getting material to students and but I didn't hear that in the plan, so I was just wondering how.
Yes, so our intention in the first week, as Sarah mentioned, is to really have our teachers and our school leaders and others in the school reach out to those students and families that they aren't seeing actively participate in that online platform and ask them questions about, how can we help you? Did you receive the email? If you did, let us help you get started. If you didn't, what resource can we potentially provide for you to help you access that? So we need to gather that information on how we can support each individual family. Then from there, and especially beginning September the 8th, after Labor Day, we're really going to work to provide what we're calling instructional kits,
Right.
which we mentioned would have classroom reading materials, STEM materials, manipulatives, pencil, paper, those types of things that are based on the needs of the students in particular homes.
Okay.
Those, for the first 9 weeks, we can have them delivered on the school buses when they're delivering meals, and so we can connect that way. We can also use some other resources, such as our social workers, to check on families and deliver things that need to be delivered.
And so parents would just be able to request this too, if they needed it.
Certainly, absolutely.
Okay.
Any other questions? Dr. Carter?
I was able to participate in one of the webinars for Seesaw, and so this was all just exactly what you were stating. My question was, after looking at the webinar, is the devices. Do our devices that we're giving the children, I know we're not, we were pre-K through 2, but does it have the memory and power to do all this? Because it's a lot of,
Yes.
you can draw and do all.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Most of that's web-based.
Okay.
And so you're not really, that's what we look as much as possible to stay device agnostic. We look for things that it doesn't have to be an Apple app or something that's gonna work on a Chromebook, although 95% of anything we do works on a Chromebook because it is all web-based. So we do have that covered.
The other one is, so what does it look like for a parent or guardian who doesn't answer the email and there's a call? How soon will they receive a packet if they don't have a device?
We are going to do our best to connect with all of our families in the first few days of school to have a conversation with them to figure out what we need to provide to support their learning. We are able to provide some devices to our youngest learners. I wish we had the resources to provide them all a device. So in our communication today that was sent out from the communication team, the LCS communication team, it was specific to pre-K through 2 families who do not have access to any other device in their home, such as a smartphone, a tablet, an iPad, a laptop, something that they can access the information with their student. So we're asking those families, giving them either the help desk number or the specific email address, which is itsupport@lcsedu.net. And then we will work with them to provide resources and devices as best we can. And then if we're not able to do that or they don't have that, then we would certainly provide them those instructional kits as quickly as possible to begin their learning.
Other questions from members of the board? Dr. Brennan, then Dr. Nilles.
I just want to say, to start off, I think this is I'm sure it's a phenomenal amount of work that has gone into this program, and thank you all for putting it together and working so hard, because it clearly is an uphill battle to try to make this reproduce kindergarten through the internet. So you've done a great job. A couple of simple questions. One is, the list of time, Ms. Pugh, that was listed for students, is that assuming then there'll also be some parental involvement afterwards, or is that really kind of, we're saying 60 minutes a day will be their educational experience for the day?
Both. I think at the younger grade levels, in all grade levels, parents will need to be partners in their students' learning in this remote environment. But especially at the younger grades, that the 2-hour time frame that's suggested there for the youngest learners would be with the support of parents. That does not include reading. So it shows here, it says recommendations for student learning times are shown. The self-selected reading time should be in addition to and encouraged daily. So these are, if we're looking at 35 to 40 minutes daily, that would be for our youngest learners with the support of their parent in completing the learning activities that are pushed out via Seesaw, or with the older students through Google Classroom in that. And again, that's flexible, and it makes note underneath that because teachers may find that they have to scale back and adjust based on individual student needs. And teachers and families need to give themselves flexibility because everyone is adjusting and many people have multiple roles at home during remote learning. So for some of our older students who might have 6 hours of learning during the day, they might now be watching younger siblings during the day, and they might need to access their learning and instruction materials in the evening or on the weekends. We're going to roll out new content on Mondays. We are rolling out the first week of content on Monday the 24th, but we are being responsive to parent concerns and requests. And starting that Friday, then instead of releasing new instructional material on Mondays, we will be releasing it on Fridays, which gives them the additional time over the weekend to complete that material.
That's a great adjustment.
You have a follow-up question?
Yes, sir, if I could.
Please.
So, Ms. Pugh, this is directed to you. As far as, obviously, it's a lot of information for teachers to deal with, not all at elementary as well as middle school and high school. Is the program going well, you think, as far as teachers being prepared to work in the virtual environment?
I'm going to let the teacher speak to that, if you don't mind, and maybe some of our instructional supervisors who have been working with and supporting our teachers as they've been doing this work.
Yeah, I think that our teachers, they are, getting a lot of new information, and, even those of us who have been in the system for a few years are brand new teachers this year. And so we're all learning together. But the pod work that we're doing, where all kindergarten teachers in all of Lynchburg City are working together for one common goal, and we're all using the same platforms and all, using the base same resources, that has been nice, because then then we can work through it together. And we can ask questions to the CIT team if we don't know, and they can give us one answer. So,
I've been trying to make my way up here, but Amy Pugh answered everything, so I'm just trying to I'm gonna do a better job of talking through my mask and staying calm this week. So we are working through our division-wide pods, and I do not want to underestimate the amount of work that this has been. So Dr. Brennan, you just said we rolled this out to a small group in the 3rd week of July. We had about 100 people, that's a small group, so we had about 100 people working on it from July 20th until teachers reported. And then we turned it loose last week to a larger group of pod leads, and then every teacher a week ago. The amount of work that teachers have done in the last week has been staggering. I'm so excited about the level of excellence that we're seeing. So we're seeing 40 kindergarten teachers come together. We're seeing every secondary school content come together. We are trying to find the balance between how we offer a consistent, high-quality product with teacher flavor and personalization and relationships with students. I won't say that it has been easy. There have been moments of frustration, there have been moments of compromise, but we have come so far in a week. Don't ever underestimate what teachers will do to make this a meaningful experience for students, for parents, and I'm so proud. We've got a long way to go. We will come together. If anything, we're probably going to over-plan at first, and I would say that to parents because that's what we do. We plan, and we're used to planning for 6 hours a day, so we may over-plan and then scale it back some. But we have seen such a great response at the division level.
Has your question been sufficiently answered?
Thank you.
Dr. Nilles?
Yeah, I guess I've got a number of questions. One relates to the communication from how the plan is developed from the middle of summer down to now. And you talked about having resources available and kits and all. Is that like ready to go now? Is that still in the process of trying to figure out, in terms of lesson planning? Are the teachers planning lessons the way they used to? Is this, what are the are the expectations clear? So
Yes,
I have other questions. But
Absolutely. I would say yes, the expectations have been communicated multiple ways, many times, with our teachers in terms of the expectations for planning, the lesson design. We provided them with professional development, intensive professional development. It was flipped and done via Zoom on the lesson design model that we are using, and how to prepare those lessons and those resources. Again, they're structured in pods. So at the elementary level, it's grade level pods. At the secondary level, it's those the course pods or the subject pods. And so the teachers are working collaboratively to plan lesson opportunities, instructional opportunities, and we have prepared them and communicated that so they know what the expectations are.
So my personal experience with that is, unless everybody's in the same room and hears expectations at the same time, you're likely going to have some miscommunication, especially if it goes from one level and spreads out, because now you're starting the telephone game. And so that's just I guess a concern of mine. In terms of getting the pre-K or K, the elementary started, everything is assuming they all have internet access. You know, and you send an email out, and I mean, the people that have registered, do we have active email accounts
Yes.
for them? Have they been tested to say, yeah, they're
Yes.
functional?
The people who have registered and completed online registration have provided an active email address for us. We have been sending regular communications through Infinite Campus, our student information system. And if an email address is not active and the email doesn't get delivered, then that would come back to us so we could check on that. And absolutely, we would certainly want to call them and get an updated email address. But as we indicated, if we don't see activity from students or that evidence that students are participating, teachers and school administrators and even at central office administrators are going to reach out to our families if we have to drive to the house and knock on the door and ask them how we can help them.
Okay. I guess a couple of other questions. I mean, school is starting basically in a week. Are the lesson plans or the resources that the teachers can, I guess, pick and choose from to develop their lesson plans, are those available, or is that still being built up?
They are still working on those, but the majority of them have completed the first week of their lessons as pod work. They've been working, as Ms. Jordan said, they've been working fast and furiously and giving all of their time and talent into putting those together in a short period of time.
Okay.
And I would say that probably 90% or better are finished, and some they may be putting on some finishing touches.
And the hands-on activity materials, you know, are those available? Have they been identified?
They have not been identified per individual student at this point in time, but we do have some resources for science and STEAM.
But I
We
mean,
have
like for,
manipulatives.
say, the kindergarten pod, is there a list of defined resources and activities that they might want to,
Yes.
teachers may want to choose from?
We have ideas of the things that we feel like the students will need. We haven't compiled something that's ready to hand out yet, but we have the resources, or a list of resources that we're starting to compile.
Okay.
And then we'll get more, you know, as we get to know our students and as we know what individual students need.
All right.
Thank you. Any other board members? Okay, Dr. Gupta. I didn't see Dr.
Thank you very much. I think it's an excellent job you guys have done, and I cannot use any more adjectives. But and as Dr. Nellis pointed out, my situation is I live with my grandmother who works full-time, working 2 shifts to make a living, and we don't have internet at home, as you pointed out. And I know you said you'll knock the door, so I'm just giving my situation. And so what will happen if you send that email? Grandma doesn't have a cell phone, she has an old flip phone, which is not up to date to receive or do emails. And I'm left. So my fear is, I know we believe in no child will be left behind. And you said you'll knock on the door. So is there a contingency plan in place, in writing, where you say, if the teacher reaches out to a student, and if you don't hear back in 24, 48 hours, these are the steps we'll be doing. I know you said sort of,
Yes.
you'll be knocking on the door, but what I'm looking for is policy-wise.
Right.
What do you have in writing?
Right, we don't have a policy. We do have contingency plans. We don't have them written down. We can certainly put those contingency plans together specifically for certain situations and share those with staff members. We will do everything we can to reach those families, to reach those students, to support that grandmother who is working 2 jobs and has children at home, to provide them access to the internet and to devices and to support their students in their learning. As Dr. Edwards has mentioned before, we have plans as we continue through the first 9 weeks, and we look at the number of positive cases in our area in Lynchburg. We are hopeful that we will also be able to provide one-on-one or small group support for some of our students, most vulnerable students in our buildings.
That was my follow-up question. He left so I can ask him. You mentioned 9 weeks, and assuming everything goes well, after 9 weeks, we are going back to phase 3 or 4, 5. So I know it's too soon, but are we thinking in that direction, integrating these students back into the classroom, knowing there will be some gaps in their learning? And you'll see that through your assessment processes.
Yes.
Can I speak to that real quick?
Yes.
Everything we've done for the last 9 weeks has been built with a framework that lets us go from completely virtual to a little bit here and there to all the way back to class. And the one advantage we have that I think is getting missed in this is, as a high school teacher, I taught 9th grade world history. I saw 130 kids a day, right? There were kids I couldn't connect with because by the time you got the things done, the bell rang and they left. I have so much more flexibility now to get to that kid you were talking about. Because the kids who are getting it and they're engaging and they're turning in the work, they're still going to get some of my time, but they don't need as much as that other kid. And now I'm not tied to the typical constraints of a regular classroom. If I need to, I can say, I'm going to come by your house on Wednesdays at 4, drop off some stuff, you'll give me what you're working on. At a nice, safe distance, we're going to touch base. Every teacher's going to have a lot more flexibility to differentiate that we didn't have in a traditional model. So there are going to be some things that are going to come out of this. We're going to have some aha moments. So I want to make sure that we're not missing some of the positives that can come out of this.
Because thank you for saying that, because mostly for younger kids, K through 2 or 3 or 4, parents are their voice. If the parents are missing from my life, I know my grandmother will be shouting, but poor lady is busy working all day. So I hope Step School, you guys will all step in and take care of those kids. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Harvey?
Yeah, I'm in awe. There's a lot of work that's gone on and a lot of dedicated people and a lot of really smart ideas. I'm really excited about this. I guess my question is probably directed to you, what I call the fleshy bandwidth. Me being technology illiterate, I turn my computer on. If it doesn't come on, I have to get help. Do we have that bandwidth immediately that first week? And that's what I was thinking about. You guys might have tag team on this. So
we have a plan.
We have a bunch of parents all of a sudden on Monday morning at 9 o'clock calling down here, asking questions. So how does that?
We have a bunch of channels for that. Yeah, absolutely. So if it's something that, let's say a kid's having a problem with Seesaw, that's not my department, meaning we don't have to fix it. That's not a technology issue. That's a login issue. Or if they're using an older phone, sometimes the software doesn't run as well. So some of those will be dealt with through the teacher. We have the help desk, and we're going to have 5 support centers around the city. So from 8 to 12, if I call and say, my Chromebook is acting funny, the sound isn't working, you can call. And sometimes we can walk you through the fix over the phone. One of the things that's great about Chromebooks is that it has a power wash function, something that even kids can do. And it just says, reset everything, turn it all back on, and put it back to normal. And that fixes about 60% of our problems. If they say, nope, still not working, no problem. Which school are you closest to? We're all 5 secondary schools have enough space for us to do this, so I'm close enough to class. Okay, can you meet me tomorrow at 8 o'clock, 8:30? We'll have an appointment. The tech will walk out. He'll take a quick look. Yeah, this just needs a replacement. I've already brought one out. You take this one, off you go. Let me know if you need anything. So we're going to do straight swaps for things that need an actual tech to put their hands on. We'll have people they can talk to if it's something that they can be talked through over the phone. Sometimes it's as little as they forget that they have to do something with their password.
Yeah.
It's not working, doesn't work, it's all broken. Oh, I forgot my initials, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So we have a plan that's already been put in place for support that'll be 8 through 12 live in person at those locations. If that doesn't work, grandma says, I don't have a car, I'm on oxygen. Okay, let's figure out who we can get to come by. We'll either do the swap there or figure out what we can do if there's another meeting place. So yeah, we have a plan for that as well.
All right. Go ahead, Ethel.
Awesome.
Ms. Reeves to share some information from her team that's supporting us.
Very good.
Hello, everyone. As you all know, I serve as Director of Equity and Community Relations. So the community relations part is part of our new structure, and a part that I'm super, super, super excited about, because Family engagement has been, under my purview, and it's so much better now that we have a communications department working alongside us. So Cindy Bev, Austin Journey, Scott Kirkwood, we are thick as thieves. And I say all that to say that every time we hear our instruction department saying that something is coming out, what we do in support of what they are saying is, let's flip this around and look at it through the lens of a parent. And we absolutely love each other. But I am that one, my department, we are asking those questions. Well, what about this? And what about that? And what about this? And so we are creating, and some of them are already out there. If you could kind of visualize this with me. The LCS YouTube channel should be like any other YouTube that you all and our parents, our students, are familiar with. So that once there's a video there, it stops. We may start with how to log into Google Seesaw, okay? How to do that. It's the, and I'm not going to use the technology term because I want to stay in my lane, but it's looking at that screen and showing the parent what they should see and what they should click and what happens. And then if Seesaw is not what they need, then there should be another video that shows them the how to log into Google Classroom. We have decided to be, in a very short time frame, proactive versus reactive, because we understand that our families they're living through this with us. We talk to parents, we talk to families, and this is tough. This is a tough time. And we've had to step back as educators and say, what is it that our families, what is it that they need? I will share with you the example that I used with my colleagues. I'm sorry, I get real passionate about my families. We want our families helping our children. And so my barbershop owners, they're cutting hair all day. My beauticians are cutting hair or doing hair. And they love their children. But they're not in Zoom meetings all day. So for us to talk about the Zoomiverse and what it looks like to be in a Zoom meeting and Zoom, it's a foreign concept to many of them. So I've asked my colleagues, work with me. If I'm cutting hair and my child happens to be with me in the barbershop, they're going to pick up a cell phone or a tablet. I need to know what button to tell my child to hit so that they can get that lesson. And that's the level of discussion that we're having. Are we 100% there? No. But I can tell you this. We want our parents and our families to help us. I shared with the parent today as she was picking up the Chromebook, please talk to us. I didn't, I'll speak for myself, in any of my classes, have a chapter that says, if you have a COVID pandemic, this is what you do. This is all new to us, and it's new for our families, and we're not going to get everything right every time for 8,000 students. We aren't. But we need to work as partners, and we need our families talking with us, and we need to be able to communicate with our families. So we're trying to think through it and talk with people. Tell me your situation. Tell me how we can help you, because we want to do that. It is our responsibility to help our children get the best education possible. I also don't want to neglect the fact that we have social workers. So I've been communicating with our student services department. We are prepared, in my opinion, to go forward. Once we knock on the door, there's no question of who's going to take the kid or who's going to take the Chromebook or we're all on our leader tells us, check your title at the door. So if I need to take the Chromebook, I'm taking the Chromebook. I don't have to wait to have that discussion. And with all due respect to protocols and procedures, that's not written anywhere. We just do it. So thank you.
All right, thank you all, and that was very passionate. As we're beginning to wind our discussion down, I do want to first ask either Dr. Sinha or Ms. Morrison if they had a question or comment that they wanted to make. All right, the chair recognizes Dr. Carter, then Dr. Brennan.
Just to follow up, Monday or whenever Fridays when you pass out the assignments, when will they be expected to be turned in and graded?
There will be timelines associated when the lessons are pushed out through Google Classroom or through Seesaw. But please know that we are working with our students and our families, and that students need multiple opportunities to show their learning. So if a student, especially at a upper elementary or even lower elementary and secondary, submits an assignment and it's incomplete, or they're missing some learning and the teacher follows up with them, we are asking all of our teachers to provide students with multiple ways to show their learning and multiple opportunities to increase that, to increase their grade and to show the proficiency in a certain standard. So while there may be a deadline for an assignment, we are asking teachers to be supportive, our instructional leaders, our administrators to be supportive of our students and allow them that opportunity to re-show their learning and to increase their grade.
And the other one, is there a fee for the device for a Chromebook?
No, ma'am.
There no insurance? It used to be
We offer
$75.
optional protection plan, but that is optional. But we are not charging for the use of the device.
Once again, thank you all for what you're doing, and thank you for being here tonight. I think in addition to the board, hearing this information for the public to hear what you're doing, and the program is just great, so thanks so much. My last question probably goes more towards Dr. Edwards' view, which is that, so Monday is the beginning of school. It's a day we all look forward to seeing yellow buses, to see people at the bus stops, and unfortunately this year it won't happen, which is unfortunate for all of us. But is there sort of communication going out? As a guardian, I got the email today about internet access and devices, but how about communication to people that school is going to open on Monday, that if you're in high school or middle school, this is what you need to do. Previously we knew we needed our notebooks and we needed this, but is there that buildup? Because families are reaching out and saying, we're not hearing really what's going to happen. Are we helping with that?
We are helping with that, and I just sent a follow-up email today. We had communicated last week with our building administrators, asking them to make sure that they had plans in their buildings to reach out to their families, whether it's through phone calls or Zooms or drive-by orientations, and to let us know what those plans were. And today I've been receiving, because I asked again, I know that school leaders have been very busy with the details and getting their staff oriented and working together. So I asked again for that, and I've been receiving lots of information from our school principals and administrators on the ways that they already have or that they will be connecting with their families beginning tomorrow to talk about what does Monday look like?
Right.
What are your expectations? How can you connect with a teacher? How do I communicate? How is the teacher going to communicate with me? So that will be coming,
Right.
if it has not already.
Right. And it may have, if my two nieces don't share that information with me very well, so I'm glad to hear that at the higher level it's out there. Thank you very much.
Yes.
Dr. Edwards, did you want to comment?
I was actually going to ask Ms. Reeves to come up, since she's the communication, community relations department, to talk a little bit about the vision-wide communication that we may have about Monday.
Division-wide communication. So what we're doing is, and Ms. Pugh has shared, we want to communicate in a very general way what's going on. We have communicated that families should look to hear from their individual schools. In the event that families are not hearing from somebody, then we definitely want them to reach out to us, because we want to make sure that they have exactly what they need to start. Our goal is to make sure that, of course, we're not, people use the word over-communicating, but that we're communicating efficiently and that we're communicating information accurately. So if it's taking us a time, a little bit longer, what we're doing is working with our schools, working with my other colleagues here to make sure everything that we are saying is as accurate as possible as we put it out.
All right, well, we want to thank you all living through this with us. That's powerful. The school board asked for this remote learning at the elementary level discussion, and you have provided us with in-depth information about what's going on at the elementary level. as well as to help us to appreciate the needs of the vulnerable student population and how that will be addressed. And you have helped us to appreciate how this work session ought to be viewed over and over by parents and members of the community, and we encourage you to encourage people to do so. And so Superintendent Edwards and Deputy Superintendent Pugh and team, thank you for this outstanding discussion in which I know our community is the better for it. Thank you very much, all of you.
Thank you.
Board, we will now move on to C1, and we will ask that we would have a brief discussion on these matters. We wanted to place some of them here so that our September the 1st meeting might be free from as much as we could get within our deliberations tonight. And so first coming to you for information is our Legislative Advocacy and Community Relations Committee. And we do want to acknowledge that there is now a new chair of that committee, School Board Member Belle Evans, and might we congratulate her as the chair of that committee. And we do know that Dr. Brennan, as the former chair, will be as helpful as possible. Are there matters to be presented to us at this time from the LARC committee?
So, Mr. Chairman, is okay, I asked Ms. Evans if it was all right since she was finally had a chance to get out of time with her family and have some relaxation last week, so she wasn't able to come to the meeting, which was totally understandable. If I could sort of fill in for this meeting, and then she will move on for the subsequent meetings, if that's okay with the board.
Fine with me.
So we did meet, Legislative Advocacy and Committee Relations did meet on Tuesday, August 11th. Ms. Morrison was there, Dr. Coleman, myself, and Dr. Sinya, and also Dr. Edwards and Ethel Reeves. The first thing we did was to elect a new chairperson, which was Ms. Evans, which we were thrilled to do. It was a unanimous vote. So congratulations to her for being the new chairman of this committee. We appreciate her help. We then did several items which we're just going to briefly comment on, because I think the idea of this committee is to vet some information and bring it back to the board. So that's what we wanted to do tonight. So the first item we talked about were school names related to historical figures. And I've asked Ms. Morrison if she wouldn't mind commenting on that, since she was somewhat involved with the initiation of that item.
Thank you, Dr. Brennan. I received a letter back in May or June from Governor Northam asking us as a school board and a school division to look at names and mascots of our schools, and were there any that we needed to consider looking at their need for change or discussion. And I forwarded the letter to Dr. Edwards, and Ms. Reeves is already working on looking at the history of the names of some of the schools. And at the legislative meeting, we discussed, we did not have a lot of information. We had a lot of information, but we did not discuss it at length, and we figured that this was something that the whole board would want to be involved in this discussion and any decisions. I also started researching some of the names. We had discussions about schools that were named in the 1950s and how those names were decided. Most of our names come from either former school board members, principals, superintendents. There was some confusion about E.C. Glass was not named after Carter Glass. It was named after Edward Christian Glass, the superintendent of Lynchburg City Schools. And I'd received several emails about that. So some of what we'll do is need to get out correct information about the names of our schools. But this is an ongoing process and something that we will continue to look into and bring back to the board, things that we should discuss as a board. I think that covered it.
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Morrison. Any questions for Ms. Morrison on that topic?
I'm just thankful that we are looking at it. The community needs to know we looked at it. In some communities around the Commonwealth, 4- and 5-hour meetings are being held just on that agenda item because of the controversies around names. We don't have that problem here in Lynchburg, and we're grateful for that.
We did say that the input from community would be important as well, that this would be a discussion that we would want community involvement and investment in as we look at things.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Morrison. The other item that I wanted to bring to the board's attention was a discussion about our legislative agenda for 2021. And I think that Ms. Day has shared with you 2 pieces of paper, one of which is entitled Recommendations for 2001 LCS Legislative Agenda, June 2020. As you remember, back in June, we talked about trying to come up with a proposal for VSBA for their legislative agenda, and everyone was nice enough to submit different items, and these are the list of items that were submitted. There were about 8 of them. A lot of these are already in our legislative agenda, and those are the ones that are in the black font. The ones 4, 7, and 8, we felt were new items that were not covered in our current legislative agenda, that we should add those to the agenda, to the legislative agenda for discussion. So on the second piece of paper you have is in the blue font at the top is Lynchburg City School Board Legislative Agenda 2020. This is our previous agenda with items that were there previously, not edited, still there. And then we've added under the different areas, such as student success, we've added those 2 that were coming from our list. One is LCS supports the initiation to expand the availability of broadband access and mobile devices to all students and families in our community. And the COVID-19 pandemic has accentuated the disparity in access to online educational information, as well as the potential for this lack of technology resource to increase the achievement gap. And the other item was added was LCS supports the funding to develop and present programs intended to educate students, teachers, and other staff on the diversity of our diversity as a community and to eradicate bias in all forms in order to foster equity, equality, and respect for all students, staff, and family members. And I have to say that that item led to a very impressive discussion amongst the committee that probably went on for about half an hour, involving Ms. Reeves, who was bringing us up to date on what the state initiatives are to look at equity and what Dr. Edwards has contributed to that. So we all felt very strongly that that should be added to the legislative agenda. And then the last one, which is on the second page at the bottom, is the proposal that we actually submitted to VSBA, which I think is in the discussion to be added to their legislative agenda, which has to do with the volunteer policy regarding individuals who have a history of a felony to be evaluated on a case-by-case basis. And that's already been presented to VSBA, so we thought we should add that to our agenda. So that is the third piece that was added. We're happy to have any comments you have now, but mostly if you all could review this document over the next week or so. And Ms. Evans, in her comments when we did this in June, made the point that this is a pretty long document, and we did not look at deleting or combining some of these things, and maybe people could think about doing that. I feel like there was a good point that maybe we don't need to have all these items on there. So again, we're not asking for a vote. We're bringing this to the board from this committee for discussion and bring it back to us for our next meeting. And I will give it the floor back to
Any discussion, Dr. Gupta?
So I'm assuming advocacy is both at state level and at Washington, D.C. level.
That is correct, local, state, and federal.
Because the reason I'm mentioning that is this broadband initiative, which is decent. There's a local school which has applied, university has applied for a federal grant, which our Dr. Edwards supported in writing through a letter. So if we can, push the congressman and senator
yes,
for this opportunity zones in our city to be funded and funded for putting broadband in those poor neighborhoods.
absolutely. Bill?
So, just so I know where we are, we're suggesting that anything that could be combined, or you think could be combined or taken off or added to anything, just send me an email and I'll compile all that for our next meeting.
Exactly right.
Okay.
Yep, that's great.
And if I might add, as Dr. Brennan alluded, tomorrow in our VSBA Board of Directors meeting, we will affirm the decisions of the legislative positions and Federal Relations Committee in which this recommendation passed, and then it will go before the Delegate Assembly in November and then be added into the legislative positions for VSBA. And so I'm thankful to this board for your work in that regard. And then I'm so proud of us having the candid conversations that we need to have. In March, the pandemic of COVID-19 hit us. In May was George Floyd, the realities of the pandemic of systematic racism. And I am so thankful that this board is willing to have the hard discussions to make sure that our school division in all of its forms is free from any type of racism at any level perpetrated by any individual. We're thankful for that. Is there any other discussion on this?
I just want to say two other points of information. One is that we have tentatively scheduled the legislative breakfast event that we did last year on Friday, November 13th. And Ms. Day is helping us with this as far as finding a place. We think it'll be at Glass, but if people could mark their calendars for that, that will be a morning event. And then we did send an email around regarding the VSBA legislative agenda committee meeting, which is going to occur at some time in September 26th. Anyone who is interested in doing that, please let Dr. Coleman know or Ms. Day know. Thank you very much.
And also, thank you, Dr. Gupta, for your statement, because it does have that level of breadth to it. And all of us, we can really feel good about the fact that all 9 of us will be used to advocate in some way, locally, at the state and federal level, to make sure that the needs of Lynchburg City Schools are being addressed. Ms. Morrison?
And we did send a save the date to the offices of our legislators for that November meeting, and it's already been booked at EC Glass. The room has been Marie Waller Lecture Hall. We need to be thinking about how we're going to do this, given the situation with, I don't know if we can do a Zoom meeting, but we can be thinking about that.
We'll work it out.
Go forward.
All right, items C2 and C3, the Finance Committee, because of our need to have a special meeting, that committee has not met yet. Dr. Gupta is still the sitting chair. If there's anything from the Finance Committee at this time relative to that.
I don't know if I can ask Dr. Edwards a question regarding this CARES funding, or there's nothing from the committee.
Yeah, we will address that at the end of the meeting, if it's okay with you. Thank you so much, Dr. Gupta. Anything else from that? Because we understand that you all need to meet to have your deliberations. In the same manner, as you know, the governor's school met when Mr. Harvey was away, and we understood that, and for both persons that meeting was difficult, and so I'm asking that C3 would be placed back on the agenda for September the 1st and give them a time to get the notes and be prepared to present appropriately. C4, Dr. Niller, STEM Academy.
So the STEM Academy had its first the STEM Academy board meeting was held on August 11th. I'm having trouble reading. The acting superintendent is Dr. Edwards for the STEM Academy?
Yes, it's my turn to be in charge of STEM Academy, yes.
And following the tradition, the grand tradition, the LCS rep is now chairing the Academy board meeting, which is yours truly. Looks like they're off to a pretty good start. They're full, essentially. They had 27 to 28 students return for the senior year. There are 27 students, juniors. We have 13 students, 14,
presentation
8 juniors and 6 seniors. They are basically following the return to learn. For them is basically what's going to happen at CVCC. There'll be some in-class instruction, a lot of virtual instruction, and they're getting started next week. So,
Any questions for Dr. Nillis? Thank you for that. That's important. C5, Lower Regional School, Dr. Carter.
The Lower Regional School held their meeting on July the 28th, and it was really to talk about their return to learn plan 2, and their instructional plan and their health mitigation plan and their guidelines going forward. And they're committed to going on the same calendar as LCS. So they begin Monday also, and they're doing in-person learning for all the phases.
Thank you. Are there any questions to Dr. Carter? Both you, Dr. Nillis, and Dr. Carter, thank you for your service regarding those two important parts of our work. That moves us now to D1, and the chair has asked Superintendent Edwards to respond in her own way to the CARES dynamics. And so, Dr. Edwards, would you please?
Certainly. So first, let me just back up and thank my staff that were here and the staff unseen that have done an amazing, amazing job. I had an opportunity to get to schools over the last couple days, and the staff is doing it. If you go by our buildings, the parking lots are full. Teachers and staff members are here. Custodial staff members are making sure to keep us all safe. We appreciate that. Our transportation and nutrition department, they took a break so they could get ready for feeding kids in the virtual realm, because we still are going to deliver meals. And as Ms. Reeves said, any other services that we can get out to our families, we have our bus drivers at our avail to do that. So I'm very pleased. I'm pleased with the administrative staff, who they've had a lot just thrown at them and changed quickly, and they've been flexible and responsive, and they're just great people to work with. So kudos to them, which leads me to the CARES funding, and just in addressing some rumors, putting some facts out there, and also just having a genuine conversation with our staff about next steps, so that we're all on the same page with regard to what LCS is doing. And I'm going to start this discussion by saying, and Dr. Coleman's going to nod right with me, we absolutely 100% value our staff. If nothing else, we talk about that a lot, about how much we value the dedication and the work of LCS staff. I gave the board a couple documents. I kind of want to take you through them, but I also want to take the public through them, because they may or may not understand some of the funding associated with COVID-19 and what schools can and cannot do. And I'm going to do it in a little bit of chronological order, just so people understand where we were and the decisions that we made. So the very first, I would say, CARES money that we presented for and actually started receiving and are using right now is the city's CARES money. So the city originally in May received $7.1 million of CARES, and they were nice enough to give us $2 million of that funding. In May, our team worked together, and we used certain areas out of that CARES funding. It has to be spent before December 2020. There were areas about distance learning, disinfectant, PPE, and food delivery. So we stayed within those 4 areas to notify the city of some of our needs. One of our biggest needs for distance learning was the devices, and making sure that all kids had a device in grades 3 through 5, because we did not have that prior to getting access to this CARES money. And thank you again to Ms. Pugh and her team for getting that together. Disinfectant and PPE with mask and sanitizer and spray. And I believe last meeting we had Mr. Gasky here with the e-misters, and just all of the cleaning, the signage. If you've been to a building, as soon as you get there, you'll see that there's masks that are face coverings that are required. We also received some of our temperature scanners. If you've gone to an elementary building that also have a face scanner, and right, Ms. Reeves, they can tell if you're wearing a mask or not, right? So all of those things were included in that, the $2 million that we asked the city for. In addition to some specialized carts for our food delivery, so that when we do get to in-person learning, we can serve kids in a classroom, small group setting, not just in a large group in the cafeteria as well. And we were also allowed to pay for any services that were above and beyond what we would normally be doing during this COVID season. So when you think about food delivery and transportation during the spring, we would normally be in school and our bus drivers would not be delivering food. So that was an allowable expense that we could use some of the COVID funds for. However, our regular teaching expenses, they were our regular teaching expenses that we had. So not so much so with that. We could do anything that was above and beyond and considered hazard or health related, those types of things. So we really went through to look at all of our expenditures and see what we could use the CARES money for. And again, this is May, June. So our most pressing need in May, June, because we were on our way to opening schools on August 24th at that time, was making sure we had PPE and disinfectant and everything that we needed to keep our buildings as clean as possible and ready for our staff. And we did that. I gave the board an update, I think a couple weeks ago, that we were more than halfway through spending that money, and there were some other things that we have processed since. So I will update the board on that. So that was the first allocation of CARES funds. Just to be clear, it was $7.1 million to the city, and of that money, the city gave LCS $2 million. Then in June and July, we had the CARES ESSER funds, which are just for funds that were just for schools. LCS was awarded $3.3 million. When we get an award, there's always a private school allocation. So money that must go to private schools, we don't have a say over it. It just gets cut off the top. Here you go. So out of our $3.3 million, about $815,000 went to private schools, leaving LCS with $2.5 million of funds. So together, you have the $2 million that we had from the city that we pretty much exhausted on our devices, our PPE, our disinfectant, our nutrition, transportation needs from the summer. And then you have the additional $2.5 million, which in the ESSER funds, now these are ESSER funds, these are the secondary school emergency relief funds, just for schools. I also have for you just a little one-page handout. The front page is the PowerPoint. It was quite lengthy, and I didn't want to make our meeting long, so I took the cover page, and then I just took the relevant page on the second page, which I do want to go over the usage of ESSER funds. We could use those funds to keep people employed. And if you remember when we were doing our budget in June, the whole entire spring we were tight on not hiring any new employees. And the whole goal was we want to protect the family we have right here. And we knew that if things were tight, and at that point we were projecting about 30% decreases in sales tax and lottery, we could use these funds and not have to lay off staff. So that was our intent for our ESSER funds, to keep the existing staff whole from the end of last year into to this year. In our $2.5 million, I believe I sent the board a little estimate that's on average about 37.5 full-time FTEs, or FTEs, which is full-time teaching equivalent. And we weren't sure, and we were being cautious at that time. And also during that time, remember, while we were figuring out what we were gonna do with the CARES fund and battling with the sales tax and lottery, recognizing that that's 30% of our revenue, sales tax and lottery funds, we also were doing our budget, our operating budget. And if you recall, the outcome of our operating budget is we were decreased from level funding to about $2.2 million. So our operating budget for the current school year is $2.2 million than it was last year. And to the best of our ability, we kept the essential staff that we had. Some staff who retired or resigned or moved due to travel, we did not replace those staff members. And we were hoping that our ESSER funds would cover any shortfalls. So that's where we stand right now with the ESSER funds. I do want to point out, and I think it's really important for the board to know, for our community to know, and for our staff to know, on this document, and again, this is the PowerPoint from Virginia Department of Ed, the second bullet says CARES funds generally cannot be used for bonuses, merit pay, or similar expenditures. Cannot be used for bonuses, merit pay, or similar expenditures. And I know there were a lot of questions as to why Are we holding our CARES money? We're holding our CARES money because we wanted to make sure we could still employ all of our staff. And why didn't we take our CARES money and give a bonus? Well, you can't do a bonus with the CARES. So let me just go over, how did the city do the bonus? You can use money to, as I said before, those expenditures that are hazard, above and beyond health and safety, all right? So when you look at the city, and I do believe Donna Witt did a great job of explaining this if you watch the video, where she talks about how the city funds were deployed. Our police, our fire, first responders, all of that would be considered hazard, first responders, public safety. So for them, they could take the expenses that they had during that time, from March until December, for those departments, and they could use the CARES money to pay for those. So what does that do for them? It frees up operating dollars. Their bonus came out of the freed up operating dollars. And I know the article in the paper said uses CARES funds to pay bonuses, and we were concerned about that. I know they're concerned about just the way that it's worded, and they did not do that. The funds are actually freed up funds coming out of their operating budget, which, when you look at LCS, we're already at a deficit in our operating budget for $2.2 million. But I just wanted to make sure that that part was clear to the board, clear to the community, and clear to our staff, because there were a lot of questions about why LCS did not get a bonus. So that was our May, June money. Friday, there were the GEAR funds, and unlike the ESSER funds and the city CARES funds, the GEAR funds are competitive. So you have to submit an application, and you're competing. They're not guaranteed. So again, I shared with the board, we have about $760,000 that we applied for GEARs, and anything that we apply for, there's the private school portion. So about $194,000 of that is for private schools, leaving us with $566,000. And again, bonuses are not allowed in the GEARS funding. And we put in for our sanitation, some facilities, some more PPE, because now that have all the adults in the building, we're getting a real count of how much sanitizer and wipes, and how many, if we have to clean an office, and the deep cleaning and the regular cleaning that we have. So the GEARS funding the application was on August 14th. We have not heard back yet, so we do not have those funds available to us. Some good news, because that sounded like dreary news, and if you're watching and you're my staff, you're probably feeling like it's dreary news. Let's go back to our original plan, and I do want to thank this board, because the thing that kept us going in the spring was, let's stay the course, let's revisit where we are in October and see if we can get back to, remember, one of the things we lost was our step increase. And we were, my principals could tell you, she didn't let us hire anybody. It was really tight. We did a great job of trying to save as much money as we could during the spring. We saved it through attrition and not hiring. Of course, there were savings due to, the electricity and water. We did spend money on transportation and getting food out to kids. Our staff were wonderful. They worked the entire time throughout the spring. They worked through spring break. They continued to do a lot of work. The staff that we thought we would have to hire to get the summer plans up, they finished that work in the spring. They are phenomenal when I tell you what our staff has done. And that also helped us because we didn't have to pay for curriculum writing. We didn't have to do many of the things that we would normally have to do during this time. So Kim's not here tonight, but we are very happy with the work that we've done to save as much money as we possibly can. We're excited about providing devices to 3rd through 5th grade. And as Ms. Pugh said, we'd love to extend that a little bit lower if we can. The one thing that we did request, and I'm glad to see it's in our legislative platform, is we are concerned about families who don't have access. And we do want to work with our city to make sure that we can make Lynchburg, accessible for all. If we can make it accessible for all, the school division, we will work through getting kids and families devices. You see here, we'll give them whatever information that they need on the how-to. We'll train families on how to use these things, but we do want to work together with our city, as we see with other localities working together to increase the broadband capability. But we are hopeful that the board will stay its course with our plans for October. We're going to go back and revisit where we are. We're hopeful that our savings will result in some fund balance that we can use, because I appreciate everything that our city workers have done. They've done a phenomenal job of keeping Lynchburg City safe, and so have the LCS employees. And we would like to show them as much gratitude as we can as a school board and as a leadership team. But we're going to stay our course and do it in October, because we're not out of the woods yet. We're still watching sales tax and things that are going on in the community. But we're hopeful that between our fund balance, that we'll have to go back to the city and ask for approval for usage, and our CARES funding, which we kept on deck just in case sales tax was low, that we would be in a position where this school board could revisit whatever kind of monetary award or monetary adjustment we can do for our staff. And I will say every single one of them, you saw tonight the amount of work, time, and effort that the staff has put in to do it. So I believe that they are all worth every penny and more.
Thank you, Dr. Edwards. The vice chair and myself, as well as others, felt that it would be wise to have this information presented to the board tonight for the general knowledge of the board. And I would be glad to entertain maybe a question or so, but please be mindful of staying the course and letting this work itself out in terms of any discussion that we would have tonight. Dr. Gupta.
What do you mean by staying the course?
Staying the course meaning that the very well-stated presentation indicates that there are plans that we have unfolding in October that will put us in the best position to know what we can do that's best for our people.
But my question will be an alternate option, because I received several calls from teachers, as Dr. Edwards, you mentioned, that why we are not getting bonus. And the key operative word in that slide is generally cannot be used. It says it shall not be used, will not, it's not that, it's generally cannot be used. And our teachers and bus drivers were in the front lines during the pandemic, delivering foods day in, day out, on the streets, working in the kitchens. So they were, I treat them as first responders, and many of them, they expressed that they're not enough gratitude shown, not giving the bonus to them, but giving it to the city employees.
Dr. Ellis, you going to respond to that?
Sure. And you know what? You said it, and we read it too. So we did reach out to VDOE, because what does that mean generally? And we did get a response from the Department of Ed with regard to ESSER funds. I can read you. It says CARE Act ESSER funds cannot, however, be used for bonuses and merit pay, is the response that we got back from VDOE. And remember, they are the ones that approve our application. Now, with regard to our transportation nutrition workers, absolutely, they were on the front lines. And if you remember, the first 2 weeks when the governor closed us before we knew we were closed permanently, we did pay our transportation folks and nutrition folks above and beyond their regular salary. When the governor closed us for the entire rest of the school year, we got worried that we would not be able to sustain that with our existing operating budget, and that was before we were even aware of any of the additional funds that were coming.
So I think that the public needs to understand that it is the will of this board to do everything we can to show our appreciation for the hard work of our staff. And I want to thank the superintendent for taking the time out to present us this information tonight. And I'm asking each board member to govern themselves accordingly as we stay the course to work through this and continue to do what we can do for everyone in Lynchburg City Schools. At this time, this would bring us now to the last portion of our agenda, which is E1, informational items. We will be
Can I make a comment as far as the COVID? Nervous, what really wants to know about?
I'm going to do it during this
Okay,
section.
thank you.
Yeah, yes, sir.
Okay.
In E, you do notice here that our next school board meeting is September the 1st, and then our work session is the 15th. We have a training session that I think is going to be real good for each of us, and you'll get more of the details of that as we move towards September the 18th. And what we're trying to do is to be as efficient and effective as we can with these meetings. And so I did ask Dr. Brennan if there was any update that he would like to share to us around COVID-19 in preparation for those meetings and or communication. We're trying to communicate effectively with our public around all of these issues, that we're not dodging anything. We want to get the record straight so that persons will not be passing along rumors that are inaccurate. And I want to thank each of you for allowing us to do that tonight. Dr. Brennan, and then we'll be ready to move towards closure for tonight.
So the Lynchburg City School administrative staff have pointed out that our average meetings for the last 6 months have been about almost 4 hours. So we're going to try to extend this one now an hour or so just to keep on the average. So stay with me just for a few more minutes. I know Dr. Gupta would want to have our information about COVID, which I think is interesting for Lynchburg and for our schools. The first slide shows that this is at the top is the total number of cases. This is as of August 14th. There's been 108,282 cases in Virginia. There have been 8,349 hospitalizations, and unfortunately there have been about 2,396 deaths related to that. The smaller box, which you cannot see, but let me see if I can pull it up, is looking at Lynchburg. And so our total numbers for Lynchburg is that we have had a total of 753 cases. We've had 25 hospitalizations. We've had 5 deaths. Some of the numbers we talk about as far as the prevalence of COVID in our community is percentage of positive testing, which we're going to talk about in a minute. The other one that has been mentioned in a lot of information that's in the lay press is talking about cases per 100,000 population, with people saying that per 100,000 population, you probably need to be less than 100 cases per 100,000 to safely reopen the schools, that your community-wide extent of infection needs to be less than 100 cases per 100,000 population. Unfortunately, we're currently at about 916 cases per 100,000 population for Lynchburg. So we are still at the higher level than we like to be. So that's the bad news. But the good news is, if you can give us the next slide, is that it looks like the trend is improving. Last time I showed you a slide that showed a prediction that the numbers were going up, and this slide is now looking at, the top one is looking at, this is the number of cases in Central Virginia in our district. So this is Lynchburg, Appomattox, Amherst, Campbell County, and what you can see is that the line is sort of leveling off. That orange line is average number of cases for a 7-day period rather than day to day. And as you can see, as you look towards August there, it looks like that's leveling off and maybe going down a bit. The bottom line is breaking out the number of cases by day, by county or city. So this is the surrounding area. So Lynchburg is the yellow, Campbell County is the red, breaking it down by size. And it looks like things are trending down somewhat. And then if I can have the next slide. I showed you this slide. This is the UVA model. Last time I looked at this, it was going exponentially up into September. It now is, as of Friday, they change it every week. It now looks like it's actually beginning to go down and predicting. So the date here is, at the bottom is August 13th, or I'm sorry, August 23rd, is that line is going up. September 20th is look like when the peak is, and then October 19th is look like when it's starting to go down. So I think that's an encouraging trend, which is much different than what we saw a week or so ago. And I think, is that it, Ms. Pugh?
Yes, one more.
Okay. So here is the percentage of positive cases for the state of, for Lynchburg. So for the state of, for Virginia, for our state, it's about 6.5%. We were at 8% last time we met 2 weeks ago. We're now at 7.5%. The number that we want to get to is less than 5%. New York City is using less than 3% to open up. They're now about 1%, so it's got to be pretty low. But again, the trend looks like it's heading in the right direction. And I think that is the last slide. And then the last piece of information I'd like to share with the board is that Dr. Coleman and I would like to communicate to our community about the issues that we've tried to deal with reopening the schools, considering what the challenges have been with numbers, the disadvantage of children not being in schools, all those issues. So we have drafted a letter that we would like to submit to the paper that reflects what we've done and why we've decided to postpone virtual learning. And I'd like to send that to board members to get your input and recommendations. And then if you all feel it's appropriate, we'd like to submit it to the newspaper to maybe get in this weekend so it'll be there when school starts on Monday.
And at the end of that letter, you'll see the spirit is, in essence, together we can, if we work together, Dr. Sinha's thoughts all along, we can help bring these numbers down and move in the proper direction. And so, Dr. Sinha?
Quick question for you, Dr. Brennan.
Yeah.
I track these things.
I know.
And one thing that concerns me is both statewide and locally, testing is down. There's been a sharp decline. Do you know, is that because there's a shortage of tests, or people just not getting tested?
So it's a great question, and unfortunately it's a national phenomenon too, that the testing is going down nationally. I would say that locally, we still are limited by supplies for testing. There are about 3 different types of tests that we use in Central Virginia, and all of them are limited in some way, so we have to kind of play what day is it and what supplies do we have. But it is unfortunate because nationally we're at like 700,000 cases per day. The recommendation is we should be at least 1 million per day to be doing adequate testing nationally. So both nationally and locally we're not doing as well as we should be.
Can I share my experience about testing? I scheduled in the morning and I got 2 tests done on the same day.
Wow.
At 2 different places.
Wow.
And they do by appointment, but both are doc-in-a-box clinics. You go there, you call them up, and they come put a swab. So I don't think, in my case at least, I didn't see the shortage.
Are the turnaround times still
48.
kind of long, or?
My experience was 48 hours.
Oh, that's actually.
Shows up on the app.
Yeah. It tends to vary a lot. So LabCorp and Quest are the 2 main national labs, and it depends a lot what's going on with nursing homes, because if they get a large number, then those all go to the national labs, and that slows it down. But recently, it seems like the turnaround time has been much better.
See, what I'm finding out in nursing homes is they're doing weekly tests. So it's not the residents they're finding positive, it's the contract workers and the employees who are going outside and coming back. So every day, every week you find somebody other, so they're back to phase 1.
Right. Okay. So we can have ongoing discussion about that, and I'm appreciative of it, and that just keeps us informed. Thank you, Dr. Brennan. Also, don't forget that your crisis plans, Tuesday, August the 25th, each of you have that information. And before I entertain a motion for adjournment, I do want to say 2 things. Again, Dr. Edwards, thank you for your incredible leadership during COVID-19. This is just amazing. Each board member, thank you for all of your hard work. And as a part of getting ready for August the 24th, which is Monday, I am going to ask for us to stay after for just about a minute. I want to thank School Board Member Harvey for supplying each of us one of these nice signs. And we're going to do a 15-second tape to, as a school board, welcome everybody back to the new school year. I got the 15-second script right here. It's all ready to go. And if you will cooperate, it'll take us about that to do it. Is there a motion for adjournment?
I move for adjournment.
Been moved by Ms. Morrison. Is there a second? Y'all want to stay longer? No second?
Please, second.
Second.
Second by Dr. Brennan. Any questions or discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the motion carries. This meeting is adjourned. I'm going to ask that Ethel